Oh, wait a minute. Miles isn't up here. Okay, we ready? I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the roll call. The sheriff.
Tommy Johnson, present.
Rick Warren, present.
Marissa Treat, present.
Carrie Bloomer.
Brian Mon.
Jerry Stone for Butch Freeman.
Miles Davidson.
Larry Stein.
All right, it was properly posted on May 16th. Court clerk, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 4th?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. On our consent docket, I'm not sure which number this is. Too late. It's number 15. It says page B of the consent attachment has changed.
Which one? Number 15. Number 15.
Okay, but on item number 15. And so it needs to be this document here, so as
Motion
clerk
to
has it.
receive document.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, is there any other individual consideration on the consent docket? If not, is there a motion to pass it as a whole?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Micah?
Good morning. Yes, the PowerPoint, this is for the monthly financial report for the county, for general fund. We start on the first page. This is as of April 30th. We had in our reserve 684,486, but we already approved to move 400,000 out earlier this month in May on the budget board, the special budget board. And then there's a few items on this budget board that will lower that reserve to 17,486. If approved, of course. Then we go over to the next slide, which is do you want me to wait or?
No, you can.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, sorry. General fund, our cash balance as of April 30th is 29,435,358. Very comparable to last year. We have collected 102% of our property taxes at this point. Remember, May and June, the revenues for that will go down as expected because we have collected most of it. Also, the interest is high because of Arpa and normal or general interest income. So that's compared to last year way off or way higher. Then we go to employee benefits, which is page 11 on your actual report. These are numbers as of April 30th. Once again, we did receive some bigger claims in May that we are aware of. So at this point, we're showing that we're going to be negative, a little bit lower than what we know at this time in May. Last year, we had 1.8 million in our cash balance. Now we're not quite at that number. Okay, and then we go to the medical and prescription claims that are up. The average for the medical claims is actually going down compared what it has been previous this year. Last year, the May and June had really high medical claims, and it's trending a little bit lower. The prescription, on the other hand, is a high percentage. The total net is 22% up from last year. And then my last one is for capital projects. And we show we have 352,000 in capital projects is needed in the line item, and we have 158,000 in unallocated funds. And that's all I have.
Any questions? Is there a motion to receive a report?
Motion received.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I apologize, Commissioner Davidson, you have outside counsel here. Would you like to do number 50 and get them on the way?
Sure. Paula's got a spring in her seat. She looked like she's ready to rock. So, yeah, let's get it going.
Okay. Sorry about that, sir.
No. This will be vital to a bunch of our discussions coming up, so.
I appreciate the opportunity. My name's Robert McCampbell. I'm representing the Oklahoma County Jail Trust. I'm here to present and recommend approval of funding for a settlement with the Department of Health. If I can spend just a minute bringing you up to speed on kind of where we are on the jail litigation, you'll recall there was a grand jury that was impaneled. The grand jury has now been successfully resolved. They issued a report. They did not ask for any indictments. They've issued a set of recommendations. One of their recommendations was that the jail should have an independent funding source. That's a topic for another day. They had a whole set of, you need to do better on health and safety issues. So that's where we are on grand jury. Additionally, there's a whole nother proceeding with the State Department of Health. The State Department of Health is our regulator on health and safety issues. They've done 4 inspections of the jail. They found violations. And in June of 2022, they filed suit against us. It's an administrative proceeding before the Department of Health. We're defending that, but fortunately, we've agreed to a resolution with the Department of Health that would resolve all of that. So the situation is this. Under the lawsuit, they asked for fines of $349,000. That was at the time they filed the lawsuit, June of 2022. That's now up to over $500,000. The fines continue to accrue every day. To take this to trial, there'd be additional fines would continue to accrue. And of course, you'd have to pay us to defend it and take it to trial. So it would be a very large number, way up over $500,000 to take this to trial. Even if we were to do that and pay whatever that number comes out to be, the problem with the administrative proceeding is that doesn't get us anything. We still would not be released. The Department of Health could put an injunction or other orders on us. They could order additional remedial measures, all of which would cost money. That's another exposure. Also, importantly, we wouldn't have any resolution in that instance. So they could come back the very next morning, inspect us again, and start the whole proceeding again. More violations, more fines, another administrative proceeding. So that's the litigation option. Let's talk about the settlement option. The deal we've worked out with the Department of Health is incredibly favorable to the County of Oklahoma County. So the lawsuit would be dismissed. We would get a release for all the past violations. All of those would be wiped off the board. We would not admit any liability on the past violations. The department would agree not to inspect us for 9 months, so we could spend 9 months working on health and safety issues instead of worrying about the administrative inspections. And what does the Department of Health want in return? They give us essentially everything we could ask for. What they want and what they put in the settlement agreement is the county budget board would appropriate $175,000 additional dollars dedicated to the health and safety issues that are in the jail regulations at the Department of Health. So the settlement is agreed to. It's been agreed to by Judge Mitchelson, the ALJ, and it's contingent upon this body approving $175,000, which would be spent on health and safety issues. So as I say, it's incredibly favorable for the county, and we would respectfully ask that you approve that request and allow us to close this settlement.
Any questions of Mr. McCampbell?
The 175,000 is it sounds like you're saying that if we appropriate that money to the jail trust, they have to spend it on things to improve the health and safety. Is that correct?
Correct. And we've got a written proposal, which we've shared with the Department of Health on how that money would be spent.
Okay. Are you comfortable? Are you able to share some of that maybe?
Sure.
So there's multiple. One of the things that we're looking at doing from the trust aspect is that there's paint that will actually seal the blocks that are built out of each one of the cells that the bed bugs are actually living within. That's one of the things that we kept getting knocked on the grand jury and the health department findings. So that will help. And then, if I recall correctly, there's a large amount of bed bug eradication spray or whatever you want to call it. That would also go from this 175, and then there's other options. We've presented more than just that. We've presented new bedding, which would knock down on the fentanyl, them being able to hide the fentanyl and stuff like that inside their bedding. And there's a bunch of different options that we presented, but the best that our attorneys and everything have come up with is the let's address the bed bugs and let's go after that because we have the ability and the paint would actually paint all the active cells and seal all the active cells with all the bricks and everything.
So with the money, we would purchase approximately 400 gallons of a product called Bed Bug Medic. Jail management says that'd be the best product. The manufacturer says you want to do a heavy dose of it twice, 7 days apart. This money would allow us to do that. The mattresses are called Spartan Ripstop mattresses, and they're 100% sealed to A, you can't get into them, B, the bugs can't get into them, locks out odors, and it's been a constant issue, and the Department of Health has certainly been on us about not having the mattresses in shape. There's a whole nother proposal on the paint. It's called block filler oil-based paint, and that helps the bed bug problem. It also helps other problems. It brightens the cells. So one of the Department of Health problems we've had is light. And so if we were to paint them white, then that helps increase the light in the cells, helps with sight checks, and would also be in the mix with the problems we've been having with the Department of Health.
You want this to go to BET to determine a funding source? Is that your request, Miles?
We can do it that way, or we could figure it out up here. I know that we've got a bunch of other discussions about money and how we're going to come up with that kind of stuff, but this has got to get done pretty quick. So I don't know that Cody, that being a BET thing, how quickly can you? 48 hours is the norm, and so on and so forth. But getting everybody lined up and schedules. And
I'm not opposed to it being figured out now. I just know that the prickliness of our remaining funds, I didn't know if there was a thought out process about where we should try to.
From we can start looking at individual reserves within, for example, and I know that we're building our budgets out off of these numbers, but maybe we need to go back to the drawing board about the way we're building our budgets out. But at the end of the FY, after HR has paid for all their salaries and all their benefits, they're sitting on $250,000. That's just one department. There's a bunch of those. We need to start looking at doing hiring freezes, and we need to kick this budget and everything else back to BET and stop building on this type of thing, because we have to start looking at this as the new norm. These benefit costs that are putting us in this scramble right now, these lawsuits, these types of things, this is the operation. This is the new norm of where we're at. We need to dig deeper and start looking at our own budgets and cinch things up. So
Can you clarify when you say HR department of the county or HR department of the
county.
trust?
Yeah. HR county.
Okay.
Well, in speaking with Major Garner the other day, she thought she was going to have lapse funds just because of the lack of FTEs that are done.
Yep.
I'm not saying to rate it forever and ongoing. I know that the budget needs to be back in there, but is by chance the money within the trust between now and June 30th that you're not going to be able to use otherwise?
My understanding is no. So as we talk about ARPA and we talk in funds, there's been discussion about going ahead and filling this $2 million hole from our benefit with one-time funds. Let me tell you, that's, in my opinion, that's a horrible idea.
Well, I agree.
We've seen the state try to do that previously, and it wound up backfiring. It's not a thing. This is a one-time deal. If we were to pull $175,000 out of the $2 million and go after this, I think that's probably a good idea. But it's real easy for us to pull the ARPA interest funds, $175,000, and do a one-time payment. So,
And Commissioner, if I could address the question very briefly, our deal with the Department of Health, the only thing they're asking for this in the settlement is $175,000 extra dollars to go to health and safety at the jail, and it's contingent upon the budget board approving that. And so simply shifting money within the current budget would
I
not
see.
comply with our agreement.
Even if it was moved from salary to M&O or something.
Correct. It's the
That's
additional money was what they wanted.
I see.
So it's explicit in the agreement that the money needs to come from budget board, not the jail trust.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, they were pretty adamant about the not taking from existing budgets. So,
The agreed order, which was on the posted with the agenda, paragraph 17, that it would be, the agreement would be finalized within 5 days after the department receives notice that the Oklahoma County Budget Board has agreed to the fund expenditures.
All right. So, but we're not able to determine something without an agenda item to specifically move it from a particular account. So you're just wanting to signal this and then have another budget board meeting in 48 hours to actually do it? Is that your proposal?
If we're allowed, I mean, I would be very urgent, but I still want to have a full conversation about that as well.
right. So now, if you read discussion and possible action to determine a funding source and appropriate funds to finalize this settlement, I mean, it's right there. We do have the ability to do it right here, right now from the horseshoe.
I don't
And,
see a reason to delay.
Yeah, and not delay. And I mean,
Aaron, we don't need a specific amount on an agenda item designating a particular fund.
even
it's
that's
coming
here. So it says in the amount of 175.
Okay. All right.
I think Cody may have something to say.
I could be wrong on this, but my understanding is the $2 million of ARPA interest has not been appropriated anywhere. It is sitting in the cash account. I don't know that we have an agenda item on here today that gives flexibility to appropriate that money anywhere other than to employee benefits for the ARPA interest. So while you can make the decision to use money, it's not appropriated. I think you would need to have a special meeting with an agenda item to appropriate the money somewhere within the county budget that you would then be able to move it from over to the jail trust.
So item 36 should do that. Item 36 should allow us to take a vote to move the ARPA funds into its own bucket specific for the jail. Now, the intention with 36 is that the 2 million would be put into the new jail fund, which I know is a different item, different discussion, but it all wraps in together. So if we need to back up and vote on 36 first and move it to that discussion and also open it to say we can do this and we can do that.
Yeah, my understanding was 36 is appropriating it into a capital account for the new jail construction, which this would
True.
not be used for.
So
Could-
if we, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Could we vote on 36, move the money into a new jail capital account, and then take a vote on this item, pulling out 175?
That's my question as well.
You could actually vote on 50 contingent on 36 passing,
Okay.
if you really wanted to do it that way. So
Yeah.
I think the answer to your question about if it was put into 2080, would we be able to then move that over for a purpose other than the capital part? That would be a question better answered by either Micah or somebody in the clerk's office
Okay.
or the DA's office. One of those two. I couldn't speak to that specifically.
When it looks like, and from what Aaron said too, on 50, we could take that vote and then in contingent on 36
36.
passing, and then
Micah,
take the 36
can you
vote
come
as
up?
well.
So, normal payments to the jail trust go through general government, which this money, the 2 million that we're talking about, has not been appropriated yet anywhere. If it is gonna go to, as a regular payment to the jail trust, it needs to go to general government first, which takes a budget board, and then a claim can be paid to the jail trust. If we put it in a capital fund, like suggested or approved, then it sits in capital. It takes a budget board to move it to M&O in order to move it over.
Okay.
So could,
So it sounds like we will likely have a special meeting to complete this action.
Correct.
Okay.
However you
even if-
decide.
Even if we took it from HR, I don't know that it's in the right
you still got to
category.
do M&O. you
Yeah,
still
so
have
that's why I was saying, I was pretty sure we had to have another meeting. Sorry to overrule you, Aaron.
so what's the action?
Write that down.
right? So we can
Motion to approve number 50?
we can definitely approve that. And then, I mean, if you want to determine the next steps on the funding source, I mean, we can state that we want to take this out of one-time funding from the Arpa funds
Good choice.
as part of your motion, if you'd like to do that. If not,
Well, I think that the other item would be able to provide that mechanism for us to be able to appropriate that through there.
I have one
Any-
last question. Is it explicitly in the agreement the date that this money needs to be paid by?
It is not.
Okay,
So they're obviously interested in getting it done.
as soon as
On
possible.
our side, we're incredibly interested in getting it done. There's not a date.
Okay.
But I do think we need to make this as fast as possible through the process.
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion that we're voting on is just that we're committed to,
yeah, it's to
Funding
appropriate
it.
funds from the,
but this motion doesn't include a direction of
Funding
where we
source.
wish to seek to draw the money from, correct? The item saying to determine, I wanted to make sure it wasn't including a determination.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. McCampbell. We'll get to work on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other item that we should hold out of order before resuming the agenda?
Do you want to go ahead to 36 since we're on that topic?
I'd move we consider item 36.
Second.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Discussion? Is this where you wanted to launch?
Would you like to start?
I would actually like to have the clerk, if she doesn't mind, to go ahead and address this item.
Sure, sure.
I'm still holding my powder. My powder is still dry.
It's a tribute to you.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Yes, I do feel very passionate about this. Before I was elected, I believe that the BOCC and the budget board both took a vote to say that the jail is going to be a #1 priority. And I believe that it is important that we keep that commitment. And I also believe that we are able to use the ARPA interest dollars, which I think is important to make sure that we clarify it as ARPA interest, to put into bucket specifically for the new jail so that it is not seen as money that and get. I think it needs to be off the table. It needs to go into the bucket. We need to keep our commitment to focus on the jail. If we don't, it'll be easy to say, well, it's just one-time money. We're going to go get it. We're going to use it for this. We're going to use it for that. And then we're not going to pay it back. There's not going to be the pressure to pay that back. And so I believe that we are allowed to do this. I think it needs to be put aside, set over there to keep our commitment. And then as we have discussions on other funding issues, we need to work together to find solutions. And as Commissioner Davidson said, we probably all need to look at our own departments. There's some big, hard conversations that we all have to have with our own team and with each other. But I think for this, we just need to put that money aside and get it off the table so that there's not that temptation.
Okay, I disagree with moving the entire 2 million at this time. We're going to have to take some items in sequence. The first sequence is we're going to have to pay some bills, and we're going to have to find a way to pay some bills. And until we get that done, we're in a world of muck. We really, truly are. I disagree with the things to go in hell in a handbasket. They're not. Our funding continues to be as good as what it has been, if not better. This can be worked out. Here's what I'd like to see happen. What we're trying, $1,000 problem.
No, we're trying to address a $2,175,000 because you also have the benefits hole that we have to address. And that's a new norm. That's not something new. That's good. That's going to be from here forward.
And I do believe and agree that we need to take care, especially of benefits. And I do think that we have solutions for that. I do not believe that the intention of ARPA dollars is for ongoing expenses.
I understand that. I still will debate that with you. But in the meantime, the problem is, and you're the one that articulated it, it's $175,000. All right, let's solve that 100 that the counselor just briefed us on. Let's solve that $175,000 because, and we can do it with this agenda item because it says in an amount not to exceed $2 million of ARPA interest. Let's transfer 175, and then we still got time to address the rest of the issues.
Well, I don't think we can with this
So that
agenda.
was-
Well, and my understanding is that there will be another $1 million coming with the interest. So we're saying the 2 million that's there now, go ahead and put in. So after the fiscal year, there'll be $1 million that we can debate over, and that $1 million maybe needs to go somewhere else. I would argue that it probably should go to the new jail, but it would be available to have a discussion. So there's actually still $1 million that could be available for other things.
There's actually more than that, isn't there?
And interest.
Wasn't I told? So there's actually 2.7.
Oh, I thought Micah said $1 million the other day.
And just to piggyback on what the clerk said, with the ARPA interest, we do not have to follow the ARPA guidelines. It is up to the government, whatever government has ARPA money to spend that ARPA interest however they see fit. Just want to clarify for the public. The reason why we can do this is because we do not have to follow ARPA guidelines with that interest money.
I will concur with that, and in fact, we have addressed that thinking back to the CARES funds. If the budget board remembered, I'm sure you do, we got an opinion. The state auditor and inspector sent out a notice, an opinion, or whatever that said we could put any interest from CARES funds into county general. So I see no difference, and I don't see why there'd be any difference in what we could do with the interest from that CARES. I'm just telling you that, as I think the commissioner was just saying, is that we do have those options. We do have those options.
Mr. Wilkerson, were you wanting to comment? Did I see that about the ongoing costs for explanation?
Just as a reminder, you may not remember, the board took action to approve new agreements that are starting 7/1 for our retirees and their spouses over 65. That action removed them from our prescription plan. We currently pay for their prescriptions to a tune of about a little over $2 million a year. So starting 7/1, we know that we're not going to pay for those prescriptions, not a reoccurring cost. Prescription costs are gonna be reduced by that amount.
John, let me
And
ask you.
right now, real quick, we are in a crunch. We're almost holding 1 month's worth of medical claims for employees, their spouses, their kids, their dependents. The longer we let that go, repercussions happen, collection notices, things like that. There's a reason why we're over budget, and I was going to address that in my report. Part of that is less funding to start the year in employee benefits.
John, isn't it the fact that we're privately insured, that we pay our bills earlier than most insurance companies? That gets us big discounts. That saves us a lot of money. If we start paying late, we're going to lose those benefits. I don't know why there's such a rush to do this today. I realize that we do have a commitment to take care of the jail, but we also have a commitment to pay our bills. It's like being on a plane. You have to put the mask on yourself before you can save others.
We also have other options to pay this bill.
We need to address this entire agenda, not just one item. And so rushing to do this today doesn't make a lot of sense until we figure out what the other pay sources can be. Because we do have other ways of paying.
The
bills.
timing involved.
I just respectfully disagree. I think that we're not rushing. I think the ARPA funds have been here and there's been a lot of different discussions. And the ARPA interest needs to be taken off the table to use to fill holes like this. And there are other options to pay this. We do need to take care of our
I find in the private sector business, funding things on money that you really don't have is not the best source. Sometimes this money, and I hear Congress talking last night, they want to pull it all back. They want to pull all this money back. And that would include interest. They'll pull everything back. This could happen overnight. I don't think it will. I pray it doesn't. We need it. But it could happen. So budgeting with money that's in the sky, not in the bank, is not a good source, not a good way to manage. So I do think that we need to address this entire agenda in order and deal with the problems and all the problems, not just one problem. I know we have to build a jail. I know we've made a commitment, the commissioners made a commitment that we're going to build a new jail. We're doing the bonds and everything, and we're all in together. But I think we need to see the whole picture, not just one little piece of the picture.
And employee benefits cannot wait. We're holding claims. Other steps take what I've heard is multiple meetings, days, a month.
Of which we have an extension, correct? What's the drop
No.
dead date? The 7th is what you're
That's
telling
for
us
the
the other day?
prescription claims only we're holding, not for the medical claims we're holding.
And if we don't pay these, we're going to lose the benefits, the
There's-
discounts.
Yeah, there's a possibility of losing discounts.
When I
We're
don't
gonna
think
lose
anyone's saying that we're not going to pay them. We are going to pay them.
But-
I think the item here we are talking about
We
is
get
the
the
jail,
discounts by
not the
paying early.
benefits.
Yeah, there's timing
So back
issues
on
involved.
subject.
I think we
This
are
is-
off subject.
Yeah, this is a simple deal. This is a $2 million ARPA interest to go to the commitment that each one of us has made up here to fund fully the jail out of money that is available from the ARPA. Butch, now I get what you're saying. But let me tell you, there's 2.7 sitting out there that hasn't been taken yet. So there's 4.7 total. We're only swiping half of it. So if you want to do stuff with the rest of the 2.7, this is an agenda. Bring it up and let's talk about it and let's vote on it. But right now, the thing in front of us is $2 million to swipe that towards the jail. Rick, to your point, when you want to talk about putting the mask on ourselves, if we don't start putting our mask on ourselves when it comes to that jail, you're going to have to look each one of the taxpayers in this county in the eye when we get hit with an $83 million lawsuit.
By the time we get to that, we will have already had, we're without eyes, because by the time we get to that, we will already have not paid our bills. I do not want this county to get the reputation of not
2.7
paying
million.
our bills.
We have 2.7.
We are going to
Butch.
pay our bills.
We're going to
It's
pay
not
our
a
bills.
rush.
That's
I don't
not about
understand
this.
the rush for this. There is not a rush here. First of all, you don't even have a set of plans for your jail yet. I understand that we're going to do it. We've made a commitment. But right now, we need to look at the whole thing, the whole pie, not just this one thing, one item. And that seems like what we're focused on here.
Well, because I think that we need to show the taxpayers that this is a priority and we have to start putting money in a savings account. If you're simplifying it, when you're trying to build a house, you're trying to do something big, you start putting money into a savings to go towards that. And then you know not to touch that money because you need it for something down the road. So instead of just saying, hey, we're going to click the easy button to use this ARPA interest for something else and not look at long term and start saving, that's also a problem. And no one, to be clear, I am not saying that we shouldn't pay our bills. I absolutely fully believe that we need to pay our bills. We absolutely have to take care of people that need their prescriptions 100%. But to me, that is a separate conversation from the ARPA funds.
It's true you save the bill. But while you're saving, if you don't pay your bills, they'll turn your electricity off. You pay your bills first. You take care of your obligations. And our obligation here, as John pointed out, and that I've made clear, is the reason that our employees get such great benefits is because we don't pay like an insurance company. Insurance companies wait till the last minute. We pay early. Therefore, we get discounts. We get all kinds of great discounts to take care of our people. We can do all of this. It's just don't seem to be a rush that
And
has
you
to be
don't
done.
think that any of the other items allow for that, for the other
I'm worried
options?
about the 2 million for the healthcare.
Well, I'm
Could I make a
saying
motion to
the
go
other
ahead and take a
options
vote?
to allow us to pay bills and the other agenda items.
What's John's item to address John, what is your item to actually address the bills we owe for employee benefits?
Also, if another meeting was already required anyway, that we have to meet in 48 hours, are you worried about any of the triggers going into effect within 48 hours?
As long as we can identify a funding source soon, and very soon, because we're holding three weeks of client medical
What's your
claims now,
definition of soon?
within the next 10 days.
Oh, we got 10 days to work this?
I would think so.
And we've done quite a bit of work this week. I know John has spent a lot of time with Jason and Micah. And so Micah and Jason, I don't know if you guys have any comments to add to this to discuss additional ways that this bill could be paid.
And my concern with finding additional ways is that takes time. Opening budgets, changing things. This is an urgent request to get things paid, and that's just all I have.
And this has been on for a while. This is,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just a little frustrated that all of a sudden it's urgent. This has been an issue for a while. I didn't make this urgent. This has been a situation that has been sitting for a while.
I understand. You're absolutely right, and I totally agree. How much do we have right now? If nothing, what do we have right now that you can pay our bills with?
129,000. We're holding 3 weeks of claims as of today, medical claims, and $1.3 million in prescription claims.
And what is, you mentioned 10 days a while ago, so you're telling me we can still let these claims set for 10 days and get all the discounts plus pay them timely?
I'd prefer not to, obviously, but that's just from my perspective. I work in benefits. I know the timelines involved. Before we were able to pay things, but since the first of this month, we're holding each week of medical claims registers. The longer we let those go, the more chance of losing discounts or collection notices going out or something like that happens.
So going back to what agenda item?
35.
Okay, so could we vote on 36 and then move to 35? Because they are still two different issues.
Motion to approve 36.
Second. Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do we
All
get to
opposed?
discuss it?
No.
We get to discuss it?
Okay, well, I thought we had been, but go ahead.
No, there was no discussion. No, we were all
Well, you're
talking about it.
recognized now.
I'm concerned about the taking money and putting it into a place where we will not have access to it for other concerns in the budget. And Cody and I discussed this in the hallway this morning. And my concern is if we want to tell people that we're dedicated to jail, we've done that. We've had a vote. We've got the money. We're selling bonds. I don't need to prove that the county has a dedicated plan to be able to solve that problem. I don't want to take $2 million and put it into an account where we may not have access to it to solve any emergencies that we have, like the benefit issue and other issues that might pop out of nowhere. Because sometimes there's severe weather and we may need some access to those funds to be able to fix something for one of the county commissioners or the other offices. So that's why I don't think this is a good idea right now.
Other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
Passes 5-3.
Roll call vote.
Well, it was up on the screen.
I saw that, but number one is I'm working with the handicap anyway. That's why I was late today, is because of my eyes. I'm blind in one and can't see out of the other. So if I call you by the wrong name, don't be. But I would like to see a roll call because voices, my
Okay.
ears are worse than my
All
eyes.
right, all right. We'll
Sheriff,
go.
Sheriff Tommy Johnson, yes.
Rick Warren, no.
Marissa Treat, yes.
Carrie Bloomer, yes.
Brian Mon, yes.
Butch Freeman, no.
Miles Davidson, yes.
Larry Stein, no.
Okay. Now, the board's pleasure to go back.
What was that? 5-3?
Yes. You're testing me today. Would you care to go back to the regular order of the agenda now? Yeah. Okay, item 27, Cody.
Good morning. The watch list this month is a little bit different than the previous month. We've got 4 recommendations on the watch list on your agenda today. Those 4 items are consisted in 2 of your agenda items, items 33 and 34. If those are funded, we would have $17,485.50 in reserve to finish the fiscal year. We haven't added any items to the watch list since we last had this discussion. There's been 1 item that was completely removed for court services. It was a little over $68,000 item that was on there. That one has been removed. And there's been a few items that Budget Board voted on to fund at your last meeting that are no longer on here. But those are the only changes.
Questions of Cody? If not, is there a motion to receive his report?
Motion to receive.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, Mr. Wilkerson, if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I do real quick. If they'll pull up that report, I want to address a couple items. Sure, thank you. Our biggest spend on the medical health plan, obviously our medical claims. If you look at our medical claim report here, we're about 3.7% above where we were last fiscal year. That's not bad. Most plans would love to be that at that point. The biggest driver, again, is our prescription claims. We're $2.8 million. We know exactly what's that related to, specialty drugs. I've already offered a solution going into the new fiscal year that's going to impact our spend by at least $2 million less, because we're not going to pay for our over 65 retirees and spouses. That Medicare Advantage plan is paying for them. So we're going to impact that some, let you know that that's on the way. And there's 4 factors involved in why we're at where we're at. Number 1, employee benefits was funded $1.2 million less this fiscal year to start the year than we were last fiscal year. So we started with $1.2 million less in funding.
Have we added anything to that over the course?
I'll talk about that real quick. Next, we received $682,000 less in reimbursement, stop loss, refund stuff. Third, medical's up $609,000. Fourth, prescriptions are up $2.8 million. If you add up all those things, they equal $4 million. We've funded an additional $2 million into employee benefits. You take the $2 million off the $4 million, that leaves the whole $2 million is where we're at. Again, we're holding 3 weeks now of medical claims. Going into the next month, we'll have another one next week, and we're holding $1.3 million worth of prescription claims. So whatever help you could give us, we would appreciate it.
Could you refresh our memories on why employee benefits was funded less this year than last year?
I think it was just an estimation by finance and ourselves that claims were going to go down. I'm not really sure on the reason why that was. The
I am
budget was made
interested in
like
that as well, because I thought that we had the same problem last year.
Well, in part, it's same issue as what we just discussed on the last item. You put it in a pot and then it's there to
Other
get it
things
back,
use it.
and you wait and see if you need it.
Micah, could you help with this? Just to help educate me.
We didn't send it all to ARPA.
The budget gets built based on estimations from previous year. Sorry, cooperation with John, of course, because we added like maybe 2% increase, but that's just an estimate. So these claims are coming in higher. John has mentioned utilization and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can't project that, so.
This week, what different conversations have you and Jason and John and others had about solutions for this? I know PBA was one.
This, I don't think this is the item. I don't.
But could you answer the question? What other solutions?
Well, the fund needs money. I don't think this item allows for me to say where else it needs to come from.
Is she allowed to?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't like,
Jason, would you like to come help?
I mean, there's options, but we like everybody's departmental budgets, right? From reserve. There's other funds that it can be used from. It will take another meeting.
For example, $158,000 is in capital, correct?
150 in capital.
That's what you reported just a
Yes,
second ago.
correct.
Right.
In Fund 2010, correct.
And I know District 1 has had several discussions about PBA reserve as an option. We didn't really go farther beyond that.
There's 2.5 in reserve in PBA.
And
2.5.
and it, based on PBA, it may need to be paid back. I mean, when we borrow from funds, it may need to be paid back by the end of the year.
You brought them all out.
So with regard to the PBA funds, there is 2.5 in reserve. However, in visiting with Keith, who is responsible for managing that fund, he needs $576,000 minimally to begin the next FY. There are a number of projects that we are very close to starting, including doing work at Kraus on behalf of the sheriff. We've got $3 million set aside. That project's estimated at $5 million total as we sit here today. So in visiting with Keith, he is comfortable at no more than 1.5 million.
To be taken from PBA reserve to help
Yes.
pay these medical claims.
And what that, as you all know, what that would require is a vote, a meeting of the PBA, a vote to transfer the funds, budget board to meet to allocate those funds. So there's going to be a couple of steps that are necessary, but that $2.5 million is really not available to be used. It is less than that.
The one.
And Keith would be more comfortable at the 1.2.
And that instantly
Well,
puts
now
us
you
in
said
a hole.
1.5.
Up to, that would be, he would feel most comfortable if we
Well,
took the 1.2 today, and if we waited to see where we were at, but he is not wanting to pull
Okay.
out more than
Why
1.5.
is Keith not here?
He's right here.
That's my point. Get him up here.
We thought it was your eyes again.
Thank you, Joe.
We're always managing risk and problems, and money is generally the tool we use to solve those things. The PBA has ongoing issues, problems, repairs that need to be made. So to limit the capacity of what we have at our disposal is risky.
So let me understand this. If you're willing to take $1.5 million out of the $2 million that you really only have available,
1.2. Just to clarify.
So that leaves you with taking that money from something that we guaranteed the sheriff to build a new or to renovate his current facility with, right? So he's going to be
That's a
short for
separate-
that project.
That's a separate line item within PBA reserve, and I think would
No.
require.
So we just heard that we have $3 million that we've set aside, correct? And we also heard that it's a $5 million total, and we need that extra $2 million to finish that project. So if we take that, maybe I'm not as smart as Mike in this room, but I'm pretty sure that
If you
that's
wanted
a
to
deficit
encumber
for that building.
If you wanted to encumber what it takes to complete the sheriff's portion of the renovations at Kraus, you're right.
Could we
Well,
hear
I
from?
can tell you, I'm strongly against taking away from the sheriff.
To help finish paying for renovating Kraus, the full project, it was my understanding that that would be paid for, and maybe I'm wrong, with ongoing revenue from PBA rather than just taking all of that PBA reserve.
No,
I
we
could be
would
wrong.
have to, once we have a contractor engaged, we would have to encumber the value of that contract.
Okay.
So we couldn't, we could backfill that hole with PBA reserves. But we would have to encumber the contract in its entirety for a CM at risk contractor in order to start that.
And the estimated amount of that contract to do CM at risk is 5 million.
That's the sheriff's portion of this. Also, we have emergency management involved as
Right.
well.
The total portion of the facility that y'all anticipated it costing, what was that?
I believe Stacy had that at a $9 million figure.
I thought he told me 11, but okay. It's 11.
Maybe.
Micah seems to have a differing opinion. I'd like to hear Micah's opinion.
I don't have a different opinion, but the 3 million is in capital for it's a line item. The 6 million for emergency management is ARPA funds.
Yeah.
Cannot touch that. So just clarifying that.
Jason, did you have something you wanted? Okay.
Just to finish up this item, just one reminder, we're proactively
Sorry,
working for solutions for the next fiscal year. And to remind you that 2.8 million, we're attacking that by the retiree change. We know that's going to save us a big amount of money. And this is kind of leading into our next discussion because we're very proactive. How do we attack those future costs? So the next agenda item is our prescription provider summit benefits. I want them to give a quick update on top of that $2 million, what our plans are to attack that further and provide the same benefit. And as a reminder, that retiree change didn't reduce anyone's benefits. It increased their benefits, and it saves us a pure $2 million on our prescription plan.
John, I appreciate all that. I want to get out of the current fiscal year without being in jail.
No, I
And
agree.
so I appreciate what the presentation that we're going to hear for next year. But let me get out of this year first.
I was just addressing this agenda item.
That's excellent. And I want to hear it, but I want to get us out of here first.
I
We
agree.
haven't finished the BBA discussion yet.
John, on your report, you did 2%. Why didn't we do the normal 5, the way that was the national standard for increasing our costs on our benefits and everything? That's just a quick Google search right there.
Yeah.
And then
That's
this year,
worse.
if we're doing off of 2%, we're still 4% behind. So, and it says 6%. Why are we
So we traditionally-
underfunding and underestimating?
It's always a guesstimate. It's always a guesstimate.
But why don't we use the national standard if it's a guesstimate?
We went on past experience, based on past experience, past trends is what we based that on. When Mr. Lambert was here, that's what we based that on. So
And we've gotten
The
to
only
this
thing-
situation because of that.
no,
Okay.
the only thing is we got stuck in a national situation that other employers are doing. It's especially drugs. Medical's running great. Running great. Specialty drugs is what's driving this cost. Ozempic, Wegovy, that's what's driving those costs. And so we can do everything to plan and estimate based on averages, and that's what we've done in the past.
Also, last year, it was looked at this time of the year, and then it gets adjusted and reworked at the supplement time. So it was adjusted up, and there was more funding put into the fund.
All right. Is there any more discussion just on his report?
I'll
If
move to receive.
not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, sir, but you're now up. You can give your presentation. Sorry for the delay.
It's okay. It's okay. My name is David Fleet, and I am with Summit Benefits. What our job is to assist the county in regards to the pharmacy. We are brokers and consultants in regards to that. We talk to John all the time, and 6-7 months ago, as we all know, this challenge of the inflated cost of prescriptions is there, and it's not going away anytime soon. We've been collaborating with your current PBM, which is called CVS Caremark, in an attempt to get a handle on some of these runaway costs. And it was mentioned particularly in regards to the specialty drugs, And I won't go into those particular details, those lifestyle drugs. We have been actually researching the market, and for the next fiscal year, our recommendation is to move to a different PBM called Affirm from CVS Caremark. One, we've used our leverage, and they've given us some guarantees in the number in around $1 million of annual savings once the contract is transitioned from CVS Caremark to Affirm, which there is a 120-day termination clause in there. So this would actually be effective around October the 1st. So our recommendation is that Summit execute the agreement with Affirmed at the end of the contract period. In addition to that, we will continue to work very closely with John in regards to the members through programs that are patient assistance, prior authorization. The alternative, frankly, is to force members into changing their prescriptions through some very, very aggressive strategies. We're not sure that you would like that, but that's what most companies are having to do in the private sector as well. I'm talking about prior authorization, talking about exclusions when there is a therapeutic equivalent, mandatory generics. There are several things, several strategies that can be and have been implemented, but this new particular PBM is very transparent, very aggressive in their patient assistance, working through these gaps of coverage. So our recommendation is that we move our agreement to this new PBM on your behalf and start working through those savings after the contract is executed. During those 120 days from today, which takes us to about mid-September, that we will work as aggressively as we can on your behalf with CVS Caremark to pull as many levers as we can, looking at claims, negotiating to the best of our ability. Is there any particular questions?
Tell me about Ozempic.
And
what would you categorize as? Is that an exotic prescription that is now?
It's considered a lifestyle drug. I'm not a pharmacist, so I won't be able to speak a lot about that. But Ozempic is for diabetes, but it's also been proven to be weight loss, and it's incredibly expensive.
How expensive?
Anywhere from $1,300 to $2,000 per month.
And that's part of our prescription package?
That's part of your prescription package. And that's just one example. There's other drugs in that same therapeutic class that are also available within your particular program.
And if I can add, over the last 12 months, we spent $2.6 million on those two drugs.
Wait, say that again?
Over the last 12 months, we've seen our spend on those two drugs be about $2.6 million.
Ozempic, and name the other one?
Wegovy.
So all of those
Weight
folks
loss
were
drug?
diagnosed with pre-diabetes?
All you have to do is get a doctor to say you're pre-diabetic. And my understanding is the copay for that is around $60 for the employee.
That's correct. And we're one of the only few plans that cover those expensive weight loss drugs. Most private employers.
It's not a weight loss drug.
Well,
it's a pre-diabetes drug, right?
I understand. Most employers exclude those drugs from coverage.
Does this new plan that you're proposing, this new, rather than using CVS Caremark, using Summit?
We're with Summit. The new PBM is called Affirmed.
Okay. Does Affirmed recommend that we insure those two drugs?
In general, in the industry, it is recommended when there is a diagnosis of diabetes. Okay, it is recommended. But if I were to walk in there and not have that diagnosis, but want that particular drug for weight loss, that's where the exclusion should happen, in our opinion. Okay. So then you get the prior authorization, and you get the case management notes and all of that before that decision is made. That would be our recommendation.
Our healthcare provider has become a little bit more sensitive, and I think probably everybody now is pre-diabetic because of the blood sugar changes that have been adopted. Is there a way to prevent us from having to pay exorbitant prices for a drug people are using for weight loss that is not related to diabetes, but pre-diabetes?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, if, again, based on the diagnosis that has been confirmed by the provider, then it would be appropriate, in our opinion, to have that particular drug covered, if I'm answering your question, which I think is the same question about, you know, going in and saying, well, I would like this particular drug.
Yeah.
Go through the step therapy of it to determine whether or not some of these very, very expensive drugs are actually medically necessary.
So John, we spent $2 million in the last 12 months on these exotics that may or may not have been for a diagnosis of diabetes, but we now are $1.6 million short on our prescription costs.
We're $2.8 million over. We spent about $2.6 million directly related to those drugs.
John, on the other side, these drugs, do they actually prevent people that have a lot of weight, they have a lot of illness? So do these drugs save us money in any way at all?
In certain cases, they could. But if you think about it, if it's just managing and keeping the weight at the same level, we're spending over $26,000 a year per person for those drugs. An employee's premium doesn't even touch that cost. So, of course, we'd love to give everything out and everybody to have whatever they need, but there comes to a cost, and can we afford that cost? Most other plans have way stricter guidelines. How they handle prescriptions problems is they say, this is our formulary. This is our list of drugs that are covered. If you go outside that, you can't get it. We don't do that. We allow open formulary.
Is this option allow us to eliminate that from the coverage in this agreement?
Yes, could. It could.
Like we could just make a motion to do that right now?
Well, I don't know if we want to eliminate it, but I think there ought to be some criteria, some protocols before that drug is administered or prescribed.
I mean, I don't know.
There are current medical protocols involved. So there's a BMI question, pre-diabetic question. There's other medical qualifications, but like you said, again, someone can go to their doctor. The doctor says they meet those qualifications, prescriptions prescribed. My main concern about the weight loss ones, it's never ending. Those once you're on that, it doesn't end.
Certainly exercise, diet could be two protocols used before we have to expense $2.8 million.
I understand, but I think there's a time when you're getting out of the lane, and because none of us up here are doctors, and so we can't say what a patient needs or doesn't need. And I just think that's overstepping.
Agreed.
Yeah, but most healthcare plans don't cover this, or employers don't cover it. And
At the rate, you probably
yeah,
like
and
this.
we certainly can't afford to continue to do this, and it's not necessarily widespread used in the general definition, right? I mean, there's catching on coming through the employees, but if we actually had a significantly larger participation rate, this could be even more financially crippling.
Yeah, it could go up. Just by example, we switched 445 retirees to another drug plan where we don't have to pay for them. And the savings from 445 people is $2 million. We spend well over that just on these drugs alone.
And it looks like this item does not give us authority today to officially switch over to this new
It doesn't.
plan. This is just a discussion.
This is just to let you know we're working on solutions. So potentially, if we moved carriers to Affirm, they would copy our same formulary we have now, same access for everything. If the board wanted to change that access, we could address that. But really, this is just an update item. And if we did switch, when we switch, we would carry the same formulary drugs. People could still get their medications. But if we wanted to bring this back as a point of discussion with more information, we could on that specific issue.
I make a motion to approve.
Second. What do you want?
This item 29?
Just
the report.
report.
Just to receive the report?
Yes, sir.
Just receive the report, sir.
So your motion is to receive the
To
report.
approve item 29.
Well, there's a
Discussion
difference.
possible action, and we've
There's
got
a difference.
the new
What are
prescription
you
plan.
approving?
It says we've received an agent to have the summit as the agent of the Oklahoma County CVS Care Prescription Program.
So
If
what,
we-
they already are. What are we
Exactly,
approving?
that's what the agenda item says. If we don't approve it, we can skip it, but I decided we'd
We're
follow the
approving to hear
business
him
agenda.
speak. We're
Yeah.
approving to hear him.
And next time we'll sing Kumbaya first, so we can.
Incidentally, I'm gonna vote with the sheriff. I notice he's brought in reinforcements, so I'm with him.
You know, one last thing on what you were talking about. If you do the price of that drug, that's only 100 people. 26,000 times 100 equals 20.
That's
only
been
100 people taking it.
my concern.
Y'all
It
missed
wouldn't
out.
be very hard to find in the general Oklahoma population, not just speaking of our employees. We are a state that wrestles with a number of those issues that you say qualify for the threshold. So while you may have a lot of check boxes, I don't think it would be that hard for a lot of people to qualify.
A lot of
right?
people could qualify, and I don't want to single those out because those are a cost driver. We have many other specialty drugs like Enbrel, lots of stuff. To take this in perspective, for 2 weeks, we just received an invoice. For 2 weeks, we had how many? 30. I think it was 30 specialty prescriptions. Cost $152,000 for 30 scripts. So we manage that behind the scenes and try to make it affordable, but there's a true cost to those items.
And the reason the state does not cover this, as the people in the courthouse know, because the court clerks get the advantage of this, but those in the state staff do not. So that's how this has come up. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Does everybody hit their button? All right. The renewal of the agreement with Connect Health benefit.
This is This is a standard renewal agreement. As a reminder, Connect Health Benefit is our lowest cost providers around. We have huge discounts. This saves us a lot of money. It's just a standard renewal agreement asking for your approval.
Motion to approve.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, provider services agreement with Lucid Lane.
Sure. Lucid Lane, if you remember, it's all the telehealth for counseling, pain control services, just asking for your approval.
Motion to approve.
What's the cost on this one?
We spend about $120,000 a year for virtual counseling and pain control. It's way less if they were going to a regular doctor. So we're definitely saving money on that.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Surgery Center.
Surgery Center.
Can't
Yeah.
be any argument about that.
No, they save us so much money. Again, the cost of a surgery at certain places could be $30,000 for one surgery. The same surgery at the surgery center costs us $6,000. They've saved us. They've retained us keeping a balanced plan on the medical side. So well worth renewing.
It's been motioned and seconded.
I move approval.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, John. Cody?
All right, this is an item that's been on the BET watch list for quite some time. Back in September, we put this item on. It was actually a $19,000 amount at that time. Grant has continued to watch his budget, and he received invoices through the end of the calendar year, and what he needs to pay this is $15,000. This is to cover the cost, the remaining costs that haven't already been funded for the lost and broken GPS monitoring bracelets.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 34.
Okay, 34 consists of 3 items that are currently on the watch list. It's $125,000 for an increase in the vicinity bill, $105,000 for OG&E on our electric bill, and then $22,000 for our BOK retirement plan, some fees there. Kelly Thomas manages the general government account. We've had lots of cost increases over the year. We've been tracking these numbers, And this is the amount that she needs in her budget to pay for those. For instance, on Vicinity, where it's a $125,000 increase, it was much larger increase than that, but that's what we need to be able to pay those outstanding bills through the end of the fiscal year. That would be a total transfer out of reserve of $252,000.
Motion to approve.
And that leaves us with how much?
Upon approval of this item, you would have the $17,000 that we talked about earlier, $17,485.50.
Just being clear.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 35. You want to motion to strike?
Yeah, 35 is based on your prior vote on the ARPA interest going into the 2080 account. This item is moot unless you reconsider that item, because this is discussing that same money that is now not available.
So if this money is still not we moved it, it's not available right now as we speak. In order to address the employee benefit bills that we owe, there's currently, now that this item is kind of off the table, there's no items right now to address it. Is that correct?
No, item 37 that Mr. Davidson had placed on your agenda, discussion possible action to determine an alternative one-time supplemental funding source for employee benefits. You could discuss that. I would mention, because it relates to the employee benefits fund here, if the solution, when you get there, whatever you guys choose to do is great. But if you do choose the option that I've heard of kind of going to the different budgets to make up the difference in this fiscal year, basically, we always call it pass the hat. You got an agenda item later on, which is a BET recommendation for a July 1 beginning budget for next fiscal year. One of the items that's included in that overall recommendation are the revenue projections. Part of that, the clerk's office did a determination of what they were anticipating rollover to be. So if you do choose to pass the hat, that very well may change the anticipated rollover. Thus, the budget recommendation that we have today may not be valid. So if you do choose to go that direction, BET is probably going to need to take a look at our recommendation again so that you can vote on one that would be appropriate, because it may not be if that money is not available. Now, you do have some time constraints because there's got to be public notice and all that. That's why we do it in May. So we don't have a whole lot of time to do that. To Miles's point, or I'm sorry, Commissioner Davidson, to Miles's point earlier on the BET getting together, we can, whether it's on this item or another, the clerk's office can send out an email to all of our members to see what availability is, and we would be able to have a special meeting at any time at 48 hours or later from that determination. So I'd be happy to schedule a special meeting if Budget Board needs us to.
Cody, out of all respect for the BET, you guys voted on 35, right?
Yes, sir.
Look at your opinion very closely. How did you vote on 35? What was the vote?
It was unanimous, 8-0.
Take the 2 million.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Now, some of the other discussions, whether it's PBA, for instance, that was talked about earlier, we don't have those discussions because BET, our purview is kind of general fund reserve and not the PBA money. And then passing the hat, the concern there is just timing, and it's already built into our budget projections and all of that. So really kind of the only thing we had to look at the time was the funds that were available that hadn't been already appropriated.
So it was the only thing that was presented.
You did vote in the budget, the BET, for $4 million from the interest, right? That goes into next year's budget.
That is listed in the revenue projections, yes, sir.
How much?
$4 million is what the anticipated ARPA interest is for next fiscal year. This fiscal year, we built in $2 million. Mr. Davidson had mentioned an additional $2.7 million. We have received roughly $4.7 million this year in ARPA interest. That additional 2.7, though, is not available unless we reopen this year's budget publish it, go out for public, all of that. We don't have time to do that. So that $2.7 million is not accessible until next fiscal year. It's just got to sit there. So the 2 million is all that's available now. Moving forward, we anticipated $4 million. So that's what's in the revenue projection and available for next fiscal year. There's been, on our recommendation, there's no money into the 2080 account right now, that $4 million. So, well, we can get into that whenever we talk about the BET recommendation.
So, Cody, typically you don't look at, not even typically, you just don't have the ability, nor have we ever as BET looked at special funds, correct? Now, many of those special funds are limited of what you could use them for.
Yes, that's correct.
But as we look at the new norm and the expense that we're facing across the board, I mean, John's situation isn't unique when it comes to increased costs. I mean, we just voted to approve a huge increase in funding to our utilities and such. This isn't anything new. This is the new norm, and we're going to have to start looking at ways, since we're limited to a 3 to 5% increase yearly on our budgets, but obviously inflation and everything else is far outpacing that. We've got to start looking at ways to fund other than ad valorem within our budgets, and that's special funds, and that's not withholding contracts or MOUs with JJC, with our debtors over here across the alley with the judges. We need everybody to start paying their bills, and we need everybody to start getting that stuff done. Oklahoma City's the same way with the jail. I mean, this isn't a unique situation. We are in a budget tight situation, and withholding bills and such, we're not there anymore. We do not have that ability to sit there and do that. So I understand that, this item's moot at this point, but I mean, if we get down to 37, and I'm willing to sit with you guys, and when I told you yesterday about BET, I'm willing to come in there and dig in and let's figure this out. Let's start looking at the padding. I mean, I'll move my entire half of the budget that I usually take from general fund. I'll move them on the highway. I've always been against that because I wanted all my highway funds going to highway maintenance, but I'm willing to kick in for this next budget cycle and to figure this out, and I'm hoping everybody else is.
And to the question earlier, well, a comment on why we funded what we funded this year in employee benefits. And you are correct. The national average is usually around 5% of an increase every year. The reason why BET, and I think Mr. Lambert in the past, Mr. Wilkerson, Micah currently, and BET, the reason why we don't usually use that 5% number is because historically we beat the average, because the way John has designed our plan, and budget board ultimately has designed our plan with a lot of the 100% benefits. We don't see the types of increases that everybody else does out there. Our plan outperforms most everybody else from both offering what's available to our employees, but also the overall cost increases annually. We beat the national average all the time. So that's why we usually don't use the 5%. Moving forward, if we want to consider using a higher number like that of 5%, and we're still beating the average, but we're, plowing a little bit extra all the time into employee benefits. So, we see these cycles every 4 to 5 years. We have these spikes, and then it kind of levels out. If we are funding just a little bit more, on that 5%, then maybe we have some more money in there.
Have this problem. So
It's, right. We've got a cushion.
This is year 5 of flat, right? So you just talked about how we've seen year 4, year 5, we take that spike. Year 4, we didn't take it. Year 5, I mean, if we're talking about our projections, the way we've done it in the past and looking through the past history to figure out what we're going to do in the future, this is year 5. We knew it was coming in year 4 or year 5.
I think the plan's okay. We think we've identified the prescription that's causing the problem. Overall, the plan's good.
The whole issue is not just money. Again, I will say, I think from a financial standpoint, we're government, we never have everything we need. So anyway, from a financial standpoint, I think if we try to concentrate on the dollar signs, which eventually we do, then we got the cart before the horse. We got to work on these issues, such as a presentation we heard earlier on the CBS. We got to get that stuff tightened up. And then, and granted, that's not going to help us in the next 45 days.
Yeah, but we can look at those trends over the next couple of years to see what the plan performance is, and then we'll be able to have some better projections moving forward based on those savings.
All right, is there a motion to strike this
I'll
item?
move to strike item 35.
Any discussion?
I'll second.
I want to ask, this whole thing has been exacerbated or not exacerbated by ARPA funds over the past few years. If we didn't have the ARPA funds, how much money would we have had to put into the benefits package that was artificially reduced in cost because of the available ARPA funds? Is there a number on that?
Well, there's
CARES,
I mean,
whatever.
that's hard to articulate. We have transferred money because of the COVID-related medical expenses to our employees. We have funded those with ARPA dollars and with CARES dollars before ARPA. So, I mean, you could look at it as a zero sum. You have more expenses related to this. We've got money to pay for those, but now do all of those expenses go away? Some of our problem this year could be, you know, folks that didn't want to go out and have procedures done, or they weren't available because of COVID, and now they are available. So maybe we have a more of a glut of people going out and receiving services this year instead of it spread out over the last 2 to 3 years. I think that might be part of it. But to the point that Mr. Freeman made a minute ago, as we analyze the plan moving forward, we'll have a better idea of what that looks like.
Okay, we've had some confusion. We've withdrawn and now we're resubmitting, right?
Yes, I did second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
What was the old guy who was a senator forever?
Your time has run out.
No. Here, Oklahoma. Gene Stein.
37, Commissioner Davidson.
Well, we've beaten this horse pretty well.
I think it's dead.
I think it's dead. This is to figure out where to do it and how to get it done. But if there's not any new ideas other than kicking it back to BET and letting them figure it out, then
I think we continue this discussion.
okay.
Not here,
Oh,
but
I'm like, go ahead.
no.
Let her
So,
rip.
sorry, I agree with you. I think back to BET, and I think that, you know, Micah and Jason and Cody and everybody that's been able to get their heads together, all the smart people in the room that know the numbers, to continue those conversations, to find ways to be able to solve some of these problems. And I appreciate that, John, you know, you brought the presentation in today to help us identify one of the issues. I hope that that's something that that you and everyone continues to do over this next year, so that we're not in an urgent situation. That to me is probably one of the most frustrating things about this conversation is I feel that we are pressured and we're in an urgent situation. And I think that we need to be diligent and to dig in and look at these things throughout the year. So happy to now join the team and get to be a part of that discussion.
Motion to strike.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Social services. No one here for their just transfer 42,000. Micah, do you got anything you want to say about it?
Just moving within the budget to make it through the year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same. That's a similar item, just moving from salaries to operations.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is that what all these are?
Yep. Well, 40 is the same as District 3. It's just moving within the same fund.
Is that what yours is too, Rick, on 41?
Salaries.
And then mine on 42.
Do we want to take these as a group?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Is this items 40, 41, 42?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And then 43 is,
I think the computer has to catch up first. Hold on.
sorry.
Go
We
ahead.
resolved 30, 38, 39. Which are on 41 now?
43.
43. It's 43 and 44 are, these two projects have been closed out and we're moving the remaining funds. One is 3,904 cents and the other one is $3 back to the main ARPA bucket.
Motion to approve.
Both items?
Yep.
Larry?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
45.
This is a transfer from ARPA capital to operation.
Is that your motion?
Yes, sir. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Compton.
All right. This is the BET recommendation for the FY 23-24 general fund annual budget. This is where the process starts, and then of course we have solid numbers later in the summer and come back and do a supplement in September. But based on the numbers that we have right now, the anticipated revenue projections from the assessor's office, and the work done by the clerk's office, which they do a lot of the work behind the scenes, and we really, really appreciate all the time and effort that they put in to give the necessary information to BET. We wouldn't be able to come to any sort of recommendation without that information, so we really do appreciate their time and effort. Based upon the revenue projections that we have, based upon the expenses that we have, we had a recommendation from one of our members early on in the process to start out with the baseline of we're going to do a flat budget across the board to get us through July 1, and then any additional funding that is requested would be moved and considered for the September supplement. We did go through all of the estimate of needs, and we were looking at items that were requested increases that have to be funded at the beginning of the fiscal year. And those we would go ahead and address from a, are we going to have that included in our recommendation or not? We do have one item that was requested an increase. And based on BOCC's approval of an updated contract with the chamber for next year's contract from $200,000 to $250,000, we increased the economic development budget by the $50,000. That money's going to have to be encumbered at the beginning of the year, so we felt that it was necessary to go ahead and get that in there. Other than that, there were some departments that were requesting reductions in their budget for next year, whether it was because they had one-time expenditures in their last year's budget that they weren't going to have this year, or if they were experiencing some savings. Those budgets were reduced by that request. So once we looked at those reductions and then added the $50,000 to the economic development, we came to the budget that is before you right now. Doing this would leave approximately, well, I won't give you approximately, I'll give you exactly. It's $1,040,002 to begin the year in reserve. I think last year, this time when we presented, it was just over 1.8 million. But that would cover a flat budget, except for some of the cash transfer side. We've got to, for our self-insurance and that kind of stuff, we have to meet certain thresholds on those. So we had to increase a few of those. But as it relates to the department budgets themselves, overall, this is a flat budget recommendation.
Okay, Cody, you brought up a while ago, are there any actions that we took today that changed this budget, or is this budget still correct?
You have not. Now, the item that was tabled for us to come back, if BET, when we meet, and then when Budget Board ultimately meets again, if the decision was to pass the hat on any of the general fund departments, that could affect this recommendation.
Because of the carryover?
Yes, sir. Yeah, but if you meet and you decided to pull, 1.2 or 1.5 from PBA, that wouldn't affect our recommendation. If you were pulling from other special accounts, non-general fund, it would affect those, but it wouldn't affect the general fund budget. So it just depends on where that 1.2 to $2 million, whatever number we're talking about, wherever that comes from, that's dependent on whether this budget would be accurate or not.
Affectionately referred to as seed corn.
I heard
Who's
somebody went after my seed corn.
Who's that guy? Who's that guy that talked about seed corn?
Okay, so do you think that it might be proper to defer this until the special meeting? Because it's almost certainly going to affect this, don't you imagine?
I can't make that determination. If the decision is to pass the hat amongst the general fund departments, then yes, most
Okay.
certainly it would. But if the decision was to pass the hat on special revenues, then it wouldn't affect the general fund budget. If the decision was to utilize PBA money short term, it wouldn't affect this budget. So it just depends on.
Well,
what
there's
that
no
future-
harm to defer this till next week when we have a meeting. We're going to have a meeting next week, it seems to me.
I think we need to make sure there are statutory requirements of when it has to be noticed to the public. I think the clerk's office could answer those timelines. I would want to make sure that we get back and have that decision so that we don't run afoul of those statutory deadlines.
I'm ready to move ahead on this. This is, again, where the rubber meets the road, September. And this budget, though, I think at this point, this budget is a correct budget.
So
Understanding there will be changes on it in September, which is no different than what we've always done.
how do you pay the bills today?
Well,
You
I'm
can't-
not following that.
So we have $2 million in debt right now that we need to pay for our benefits.
We're almost, but
Special
certainly going to have to use
We've
something.
got to use
We're
some of
gonna
those
have to
funds.
pass the
Plus,
hat.
we have
That's gonna change these
175.
numbers. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
And if we do this, then we'll have to redo it again.
Just to make a note, we have a special budget board for June 8th or 9th, whatever that day is, for the public hearing. 5 days prior to that, we have to publicize it in the newspaper. That means 48 hours before that, we need to submit it, and my office needs to prepare all that. So we're really tight on time.
Well, if we had the new budget board meeting on the 24th, right after BOCC, and then that gives BET time, you feel like that's 6 days?
Well, the earliest we can meet would be Monday afternoon. At this point, Monday at noon or later, depending on when it gets posted, of course. That would give us a couple days to be able to come in. We would want to go ahead and probably put yeah, it'll be close. It'll be tight because we'll have to have the agenda item within 24 hours of Wednesday. So that would be Tuesday before 9 o'clock. So we would have to come to some type of consensus on Monday. We would have to hash it out in that one day. We wouldn't be able to, request for more information from the clerk's office and come back and look at it. We would have to get something that day. I mean, we can put a preemptive agenda item on budget board, but I think our recommendation is going to be so involved and detailed, it probably really needs to be linked, the actual recommendation, and not just handed out. So we would have to be able to come to get all the information we need and come to a consensus on Monday. So we'd have a few hours on Monday.
So Micah, if
Can I ask something? Can the BET get guidance on what amount you're looking from general fund? BET can only meet about general fund. So if there's other options out there, BET cannot discuss that. So
That's why I'm thinking this almost just has to involve this budget. I was just explaining, if we do this, then we'd have to undo it and redo it.
But I don't understand what part we're gonna have to undo. I mean, remember now, budgets are estimates. This budget, you're estimating a carryover. That's the real flex that's in there, is the carryover. And historically, and I know you've done the same thing this year, is you're lowballing that, which you have to, because that carryover always ends up being large in September. To me, that's the only unknown that's in this budget that you're prepared and that we're ready to vote on. This is a budget that goes in July 1, so we can open the doors, which this budget allows us to do. And then this budget will be perfected in September. And again, the only number that's on there that that I don't have comfort with is that an anticipated carryover. But I go back, the clerk always makes that a low ball number. Because if it's not a low ball number, then we got an issue. So I'm ready to pass this budget today.
Colonel, my concern on that, and I get what you're saying, but the top number that we start to budget with is our estimated revenues. Part of those estimated revenues is the estimated rollover. If we are changing that estimated rollover, our top number changes by that amount. Thus, all of the line items, or some, or one, or whatever, is going to have to be adjusted to allow for that reduction in estimated revenue.
What? Micah?
Well, so the reserve or the rollover is very low. At this time of the year, the projections are very conservative.
Right.
Right. And we look at that again in September. Now, it would be a percentage of, if we pull 2 million out of this budget, like general fund, it would be a percentage of that, not straight 2 million on the rollover.
Say that again. How much were you just saying how much is projected in rollover?
Yeah, it's at this time of the year, it's pretty conservative.
But you said 2 million is.
Sorry. Like, we need to know the number that we need to adjust the general fund with, and then the rollover is a percentage of that. Now, if you lower it's straight by 2 million, I don't know. I don't think.
And Butch, what I had said earlier was that if you do this, it may change. I'm not guaranteeing that it would change the situation and we would have to do another recommendation. It may not. What I would want to do personally is look at what the rollover projection is going into next year, and does there need to be an adjustment on that based on any action that's taken? If not, if we estimated, 6 million in rollover and we're comfortable that, it's going to be that, even taking this 1.5 or $2 million out, we may not need to change that. But until we look at those numbers, I don't know. If we anticipated a $2 million rollover, then we would have to change that, because we can't anticipate any rollover if we pull 2 million out. So I would need personally to look at those numbers to know if it would. That's why in the beginning I said it may affect. I'm not guaranteeing that it would.
Okay, well, is there a motion one way or the other here?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? Is there not a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Did you push your button? Oh, well.
Makes it hard.
That makes it difficult.
Okay, it passes 5-3. All right, number 47.
Can I get clarification then real quick? If this passed, you guys still want us to meet and try to make some determinations? Okay.
And you're chair, so you're able to call the meeting, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, if the clerk's office could send out an email ASAP to all of our members, just one of your individuals that's not on our committee, send out an email to see if everybody's available Monday afternoon, say 1 o'clock. If we are, we can meet Monday at 1 and continue until we, have a good recommendation.
Carrie,
or a
can
good
you
change.
go talk to Walter so he can send it right now?
Thank you, Cody.
Cody, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Micah, for the hard work y'all do.
Yeah.
Being put on the spot is extremely difficult. So,
Okay. Item 47. This is discussion and possible action of the department's estimate of needs for fiscal year 23-4.
Just to receive the estimates of needs.
Okay, is there a motion to receive?
Move to receive.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, item 48, action regarding the Oklahoma County General Fund budget. That's what was referred to above, so is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. No. Okay. A resolution for the County Budget Board urging Congress to pass the Due Process of Continuity of Care Act. Commissioner Blumert.
Yes, so there should be two attachments that you might want to take a look at. The actual resolution and then a letter of support on behalf of the National Association of Counties, the National Sheriff's Association, the Major Cities Chiefs Association, and the Major County Sheriffs of America Association. So this particular bill in Congress right now is Senate Bill 971. And to kind of back up and explain why I wanted to discuss this today is currently when people are booked into our jail, we are legally not allowed to bill Medicaid. We pay for their health care 100% out of our budget, and that is across the board for every county jail in the country. Once you're booked in, we can't bill Medicaid for your medical care. This act, the Due Process Continuity of Care Act, would allow county jails to bill Medicaid for those individuals. And as you all know, as our discussions have shown today, healthcare costs are going up and the jail is included in that. So if we were able, as a county and as a county jail trust, if they were able to bill Medicaid for much of the care that is delivered inside that jail, it would be a huge weight lifted off of our budget for the jail. So I know Larry he and I have talked about this and he's supportive. It's supported by National Association of Counties and those three other organizations that you saw. The Senate version currently has 4 co-sponsors, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And the House version has 18 co-sponsors, 10 Democrats and 8 Republicans. There's also another bill that is not listed in our resolution today, HR 3074. That is more pertaining to people coming out of prison. This board is particularly, I think, more concerned with the folks in our jail, and that's what that Senate Bill 971 addresses. So I'm open for discussion, but I wanted to bring this resolution before you all and hopefully support it, and then we can send it out to our federal delegation and hopefully get some more support for this bill.
Motion to approve.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you all so much.
51. Maybe. Is Mr.
50?
Cardibono still here?
50? We are, oh, sorry, we're doing 50, sorry. Yeah, I got you.
Sorry for your delay.
No, I'm trying to enjoy the feeling of not being the most controversial thing on the topic, on the agenda. Before we get to the third quarter report, I'd like to, on your desk, there should be this document from the federal government, U.S. Department of Justice, National Institute of Corrections, Planning of New Institutions Procedure. the National Institute of Corrections is an arm of the Department of Justice, and when it's got DOJ's logo on it, if you can locate it. When new institutions are being planned throughout the country, DOJ has the opportunity to come in and help people plan that jail. We were encouraged by DOJ to do this through the National Institute of Corrections. They'll be here June 26, 27, and 28. As budget board members, if you look on the second page, you can see that they expect there to be participation from county officials, law enforcement officials, etc. So at some point I can reach out to you, but we probably need at least one of the county commissioners willing to serve. But it's a 3-day training, and they put people together as teams. So it's not just a come and go kind of thing. You've got to be there, and you've got to be there the whole time. Obviously, if 2 of the 3 commissioners are going to commit to that all the time, then we'd have to work with the clerk and the council, the district attorney's office, on how that would be a public meeting. But at a minimum, we would need at least one of the commissioners. And then for the other budget board members, we'd ideally want at least one of the budget board members. Again, I know it's a 3-day commitment. I know that's a difficult commitment. But I wanted to give you this to have some time to think about it. And then, if you can reach out to me if you're interested in being one of these participants, because they have to know before, a few weeks out who's going to be participating so they can make the proper arrangements.
Sheriff, naturally, I think this would be the 2 people that sit on the trust on this board, and it'd be you and me. I mean, if you're willing, I'm willing.
Yes, sir. And, I might even have one of my deputies that is well versed in jail operations definitely take my place to provide a little bit more insight than what I can. So that's what I do. Where?
I'm still working on a venue, but it'll be downtown somewhere. It'll be convenient for you all. And then for the other participants, once we have the team that will actually be full time, you as members, especially if it's going to be an open meeting, you can come and go as you want to watch different segments based on the agenda. Okay. You can show up for that, but we probably need to know, commissioners, which segments you'll want to attend so that we can make those open meeting designations at that time. And I think that's what clerk and DA Bahena, we need to have that conversation more detailed.
I did see your email. I was a little confused about it. So I would like to have a follow-up conversation. And since if it does include our staff, really want to make sure that we're thinking through that. We obviously have a whole lot that our staff needs to be focused on right now. So can we hold to make a decision before we?
This, for today, it's just a discussion topic. Okay. And I don't know that it takes a vote of this body for you all to designate yourself. You're talking about whether to make it an open meeting?
Right. And how much time that's going to take and what staff we need. And those are a lot of questions that I have, and I'm not opposed to it. I saw the email, but we hadn't had a chance to have a conversation to see what that all involves.
Okay. Yeah. I'm having a conversation with Ms. Etherington and Ms. Hudson tomorrow afternoon. Okay. But if we need a more formal conversation, we can.
No, I'm good. I just want to make sure I cover all the bases on it.
Yeah. I would love for it to be an open meeting so that I could come to portions of it that I can, but I understand that it's going to take some organizing. So.
Unless 5 of you all are going to commit right now to go, then we can make it a budget board open meeting and solve that problem. But no.
And to factor in the chief deputies on that too.
That's right.
with regards to budget board anyway. Okay, any other discussion?
Okay, this next item is the quarterly report. I want to actually have you all start at the back page, page 9. It's the picture of the cells. So in the illustration, it's a picture. Cell number 5 is what is currently in the jail, what a cell door looks like, and the windows, the outdoor window that looks into the cell. A lot has been talked about the difficulty of staff having to do site checks, and I think this picture illustrates that difficulty because you're having to look up into that window and try to see what else is in that room just based on what you can see out of that small window. And now that Major Garner is Director Garner, and hopefully I'll remember to call her that, Director Garner and her maintenance staff has recognized number 6 is the new windows that they are putting in the cells. And you can see they're larger. You can even see through the lights more bright coming in. Unfortunately, these are very time and labor intensive to do. So they've started the process, and I think they've done about 12 of them. And they're only right now putting them on the mental health unit. First was suicide prevention, but then mental health, and then medical. So it's highly unlikely that this is going to make it all the way to the regular cells in the future, but they're at least starting with the greatest need related to that. But we think it's an important step, but we're probably going to be in the new facility before every single cell in the whole facility has these windows. And so going back to page 8 now, I'm just going to work the whole way backwards. This is what the new jail, these are not the actual renderings. The architect, we anticipate will be hired in the next 2 to 3 weeks. On Tuesday, the Construction Oversight Board will be making that architect selection. And so then I think that'll be coming to BOCC. But one of you have said that it would be night and day different between what we currently have, that versus what we're going to have. And I think it's an accurate statement. It is going to be night and day. This is what a modern jail looks like. That middle picture, that is what a regular pod would look like. And if you look to the left side where the desk is, behind that is open glass light coming in. The rec area for every pod will have its own outdoor rec area. And so you can see it's night and day. But the update on the jail process is the bonds are in. The bond money has come in. It came in at a lower amount, 3.23 than the 4.5% that we advertised during the campaign. I'll know it's well below the 10% that the critics of the process said the bonds would be sold at, that we knew then was wrong. Now we have facts to verify that they were absolutely wrong in their assertions. The land acquisition process is still being reviewed by the Construction Oversight Board. They'll have another presentation on that on Tuesday. The architect will help with the site selection process, and so things are moving forward. We hope that by August or September we'll have a lot more firm footing on what some of those items look like. Obviously, the architect will start. We have money to pay the architect, and so the architect will start as soon as that contract is finished.
And the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee has not yet recommended an architect yet.
That's correct.
Okay.
The interviews are complete. Tuesday
Next week,
afternoon.
they'll take a vote to actually recommend to the commissioners.
That's correct.
Who to select the architect. Okay.
That's correct. And so then once the commissioners presumably approve, obviously you have that right, then the contract negotiations between the county engineer and the architect will begin. Hopefully that'll be a quick process. And then if we can, ideally, if we can get them contracted in mid-June, that would be great. And
Wonderful.
that'd be wonderful, right? Okay, so that's the update on the new jail. This you have all seen in some other capacity. We created a county justice system map, and that just tells all the different players how they sort of fit together. And so that's just for your review. Jail population continues to go down. We're now on page 6. For the last quarter, the total jail population is 1513. And if you look on your chart, across the bottom in the dark blue is the number of DOC residents, those that have already been adjudicated and have not yet been picked up. Since this has come out within the last month or so, those numbers are actually going, the county numbers going down and the DOC numbers gone up. We're running around 1450, 1500, with 200 of those as of yesterday are DOC. And so that's trending in the wrong direction because these are people that have already been adjudicated, they've been sentenced, and it's only a matter of transport to DOC, and that hasn't happened. And hopefully we'll be looking into what's going on. That number for DOC pre-COVID was in the 75 to 100. Post-COVID, it's been more close to that 160 number that you see on that chart. One of the other things that this is a new thing that we've been able to do based on the jail's new data tracking system, Jail Tracker. Each year, cities or municipalities are required to do, if you're receiving a certain amount of HUD, federal housing and urban development funds, you have to do what's called a point-in-time count. We had not been doing that in the jail recently, pre-COVID. It happened several years ago, but it sort of fell off the radar screen even before the trust came in. We were able to work with the jail's jail tracker system. CJAC has a data analyst that does this. And then the Arnall Foundation has embedded in the jail diversion liaisons. Between them, the three of us, and the jail's IT director, we were able to use the criteria that HUD uses to determine homelessness and come up with the point-in-time count, which was on January 26th. If you look at those numbers, the homeless number in the jail that night was 11%. Over 45% of those are veterans. And so already we've had Judge Stoner has Veterans Treatment Court, so they're starting to look at that. And then TEAM has a specific program for veterans. So we are starting to mobilize those conversations. We've also made this information available to the city of Oklahoma City as they're looking at how they're handling the homeless population. We have 3 new members on CJAC, new District Attorney Bahena, new Chair Commissioner Mon, and then the new CEO of the Chamber, Christy Gillenwater. And then finally, she was still interim at the time that we published this, now that she's the jail administrator. Some of you have seen this before, but we thought it was important that as she's the new leadership, that we highlight the new mission, vision, and values that she put out there. We think the number one issue is recruitment and retention. She knows that. I think the trust knows that. Those site checks, you saw how difficult it is to make that site check. That's just a matter of, do you have enough people to get that done on a regular basis? And it's really hard to do that. In the grand jury report, they said they would like it to get up to 409. We haven't been up to 409, even going back to when Sheriff Taylor was there. That's a great aspirational number, but we haven't been there in over 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And I don't even know, going back into Sheriff Wetzel's tenure, if they were ever at 409 as far as on the job, not including the reserves that they were able to pull forward. However, I just want to go through just this core values part she has that she's come up with the acronym PRAISE: professionalism, respect, accountability, integrity, service, empowerment. When you talk about is leadership moving things in the right direction, she's at least putting out the vision that this is moving in the right direction. And that acronym, I think most organizations would be happy to have that as their acronym moving forward. And so, our hope is that we can get behind it. I will say this, in recruitment and retention, it's really hard to get people to want to work at that facility when there continues to be unfounded negative comments and negative publicity related to that facility. Ms. Garner is doing a great job trying to turn things around. The trust is really digging in and working hard. And it'd be great if people identified and recognized the good things that are happening there that would make people want to go work there. Obviously, with a new leader, that would be another way for people to go work for, and to be there to, as a staff person, to transition to a new facility where we think recruitment and retention's going to be a heck of a lot easier there. But we want to move things in the right direction even now. So it's not for a lack of effort, but it's really hard when there's so many headwinds against you. And that would be my last comment.
Any questions, Mr. Tardibono? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
I have one question. I'm trying to figure out how many people we put in the county jail every year total. Churn and new people and old people that are staying there. Because I was looking at some of the data on the state prison system, and if we were a state prison, we'd be the number 2 or number 3 largest prison in the state. I'm just trying to figure out total numbers every year.
Ms. Garner updates that in her monthly report.
I'd love to have a
so
copy.
we could give you a copy of that monthly report.
Last time I knew, it was around 50,000 were
Yeah,
booked annually.
It's tremendous. And the nature of a jail is that. And that's why, again, the design of the facility was not created for a a transitional facility, a jail. It was really a maximum security cells. All of them are maximum security cells. There's no options. And that's why the new facility, the design process is so critical, that we design it to make it easier to staff, easier to maintain health and wellness, things of that nature.
Tim, I was really going to let you off until you said the word transient.
It was a slip.
It was a slip. So just to clarify, everybody's got this in their pocket or in their packet right here. It says there are 130 individuals on this point in time. This is a HUD number.
Oh,
You have to have been homeless
he's
for
right.
90 days in order to be counted on that. What's actually in our jail over the weekends is anywhere between 300 and 400 homeless individuals that the city puts in there every weekend. And usually
that's
the largest
valid.
homeless shelter in the state.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. HUD's count of what qualifies as homeless is much more strict than but on the same token, people are self-identifying as homeless or transient when they're coming in. But it's an issue. It's an issue, no question about it.
Yeah.
Sheriff, were you trying to say something? I thought you were waving at me. Is there a motion to receive this report?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any citizens to wish to speak before the budget board? Hearing none, any new business? If not, is there any board comments beyond those we've already heard?
Thank you, Sheriff and law enforcement. It's Law Enforcement Appreciation Week, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you. And we have a visitor, Drew Dugan, here from the Chamber of Commerce. He apparently will be assigned to come over and monitor us, so you're in trouble, Butch.
We were able to go to Washington, D.C. and honor Robert Swartz for his dedication to service and sacrifice of his life, making the ultimate sacrifice. And that was quite an honor and a privilege to be there in attendance and call his name.
And his name is on the wall now.
His name is on the wall.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good.